Well, welcome back, everybody. Have you ever wondered how the best leaders got to where they are? Like, what separates those who are really good and effective from those who are truly great? I certainly do. And this is why once in a while I feature one of our industry's CIO legends. In the past, we've heard from some of our greats: Charlie Feld, Larry Quinlan, Karenann Terrell, Diana McKenzie. Soon, Rob Carter is going to be on. Folks who have had a profound impact on our industry, on their companies, and certainly their people. Today, I'm excited to shine the light on CIO legend Anil Cheriyan. Anil's storied career spans multiple industries. And I would say not even Gen AI could have written his career story. And I think the only thing that he really failed at was retirement. In fact, he retired once and got the call to serve in our federal government in a big transformation role, which I certainly appreciate his service. He retired again a second time and got the call and took on a very different role at Cognizant. He tells me the third time's the charm, but I wonder because he's got so much passion, so much energy about the challenges and the opportunities ahead for our industry. So the jury's out, Anil. We'll see. All right. So on that note, I want to welcome Anil Cheriyan to the podcast. Anil, reflecting back on your storied career, which spanned multiple industries and really a diversity of roles, what would the headline be describing your career?
That's a really tough question. In fact, Dan, I really hate those kinds of questions because
I
it
know you do.
almost sounds as though it's the end of your career. So what do you think, reflecting back and so on? But I'd say I really enjoy being in um, the amazing technology that's out there and how it really changes businesses. That's really been the curiosity that I've had. I'm a lifelong learner as far as those are concerned. So I don't know. That's a long headline. We could probably shorten it into lifelong learner or curious about technology and excited, right, about technology, right? I'm a technologist at heart, and how it really changes businesses is really what I'm after. So I started my career in consulting, did a lot of work. I really wanted to work in financial services. Went into financial services, wanted more of an international background, went into Cognizant. My career has changed because I really wanted that experience.
Well, we're going to unpack a lot of that. I'm so appreciative of you taking some time to do this and sharing, because there's so much to your story. And in fact, there's so much to it. I had to go find 6 people who know you well. And these are our mystery questioners. You know how this works. And so they're going to help us unpack the Anil Cheriyan superpowers. They're going to get you talking about things that you wouldn't talk about on your own because you're such a darn humble guy. And so you know how this works. Let's have some fun with it. You're going to love these people. So let's listen into the first one.
I'm dreading it.
It's going to be so good. Let's have some fun.
Anil, so as you think about your career, having been a CIO at a Fortune 1000 company, and then moving over into the services business, you bring this sort of dual aspect of having been a buyer as well as on the sales side of that equation. And how do you think that helps you today as you talk to companies who are looking to grow their businesses or help them position themselves differently than their competition?
Yeah, that's Monty Hamilton, the great guy. He's the CEO of Spark, where I'm on the board. He's a amazing business that he's built, and he was actually in the consulting business for many years as well. So, I'm honored to be selected to be on his board, and he's really a consulting, technology, digital engineering services provider. All my career, I've been in as a partner at PwC and an IBM, really servicing clients and providing them with whether it's digital transformation or new systems or new ways of looking at things. And then I became the CIO at SunTrust, where I became a buyer of a lot of these services. So I started seeing from the view from the other side. And the way I'd put it is that if you're in the services side of the business, you're out there solving a particular problem. You're there with your solution. And ideally, it's not a hammer trying to find a nail. You're really trying to put it in the context of what does the client really need? And a lot of really good consulting or technology services providers really are good at putting their services in the context of what the client needs. Now, if you're on the buying side, you're sitting there saying, I got so many things going on, and this is just one of the things. And you're kind of worried about, hey, how am I going to make this work? Is this going to fit in the overall political landscape that I'm in? Am I going to be successful in making it happen? And so you have a much broader view, and that's immediately when I became the CIO at the bank, I saw, there's a huge view that you've got of so many things that are going on. And you listen to the pitch from whether it's a technology firm or a consulting firm, and you're like, hey, you guys are only looking at it this way. Think about all the things I've got going on and put it in that context. So the really good services folks know how to do that. They know the political landscape. They know the industry. And that's really something that I push for, even when I'm on the board of Spark. It's like, how industry focused are we? Do our people really know the industry? Do our people really know the context of what we're trying to do? And it's really good seeing it from both sides of the equation there. And so when you hear a pitch or you hear a story, when you hear you can kind of see through the BS, as it were, and see to whether the person really understands what they're trying to sell and how it fits in. So I think it's given me that perspective, and I spent a lot of time with Monty, and in terms of we go to clients together, and he's a great guy. He's always good with tough questions like that.
Well, thank you, Monty. Great question. It's interesting. When I reached out to him, he was preparing for a board meeting with the board you're on, and so I said, "Well, you better not be too tough." But I said, "The good thing is this is going to be after the board meeting, so you're safe." So interesting answer, because this really speaks to putting yourself out there. I think being comfortable, being uncomfortable is kind of cliche, but not many people do it well with comfort, right? And so how do you operate when you get out over your skis? How do you approach those scenarios?
I love being uncomfortable. I think it's been something that's been drilled into me from an early age. And when you're a consulting partner, you are always being looked at by your client for answers, and oftentimes you probably don't know the answer, and you're going to have to go figure it out. And I think being in that situation helps you learn. It helps you, that stress really helps a lot, especially helps someone like me, because I'm then trying to figure out what to do, how to service my client the best and get the right solution and so on. And that's worked for me also in as a CIO and in an executive role and so on. I don't like the word being over your skis, because that sounds as though you're a little bit out of control. I like being pushed and I like being uncomfortable, but I really spend a lot of time preparing. I spend, even before a meeting that I know I'm going to be in a situation where I don't know all the answers, I prepare. I mean, I work through who am I meeting, who all are going to be in the room, what are all the different opinions, what are they all thinking through, what kind of questions will they be asking, what kind of questions should they be asking if they don't ask the questions, and then start really working with the role playing, as it were, in my mind as you walk in the meeting. How's it going to start? How are you going to build it? How are you going to work through that? And that's a very meeting focus, but it could be in any situation, whether it's a meeting or a project or whatever. But I think being uncomfortable, having that stress is a good thing, and having that puts you in the zone where you have to be your best. But I hate being over my skis, meaning I'm out of control. I want to be in control, so I spend a lot of time preparing, write down notes, work through the whole thing. There are times, before a board meeting, for example, when I had to present, I'd sit in my basement and and just run through the whole presentation, walk through it and go over it. I'm sure you've done it as well, but it's just being very, very prepared is the only answer to meeting those challenges.
That's golden. Something I find very fascinating. What questions will they ask? Making sure you're prepared, but then what questions should they ask? Which now you can help them, maybe educate them, right? Sometimes people don't even know the questions to ask, and you can really help them in that way. That's fascinating. I was out at the Broadmoor, as you know, this week at the CIO 100 Awards, and I led a 2.5-hour leadership masterclass with 80 of your industry peers. It's pretty special. And one of my questions to them was, it was around the Abe Lincoln quote. He said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree. I'll take the first 4 sharpening the axe." Right. That's your preparation, right? So you're not over your skis. Well, I've got another friend of yours, mystery question, someone who's worked for you in the past, that's going to shine some more light on this, but also how you've helped others in this way, Anil. So listen in.
Anil, talk about your approach to leading strategy in a company and pushing people outside of their box, especially for those of us in IT.
That's Kathy Kay, great person. She's now CIO at Principal Financial Group, really doing a great job there. She and I met recently at some event and caught up. She worked for me for a while at the bank. I think the whole idea of thinking strategically and really kind of coming up with what is it that you, from an IT perspective, need to be doing for the bank or the company that you're in. Getting that perspective is very, very important to me, meaning what is the board looking for? What are the clients looking for? What is the rest of the executive team looking for? What are employees looking for? And then putting it in that context. You're really understanding that strategy is something that's critical. I've been working in Cognizant. I was head of strategy and had a really good team working through that. And we did all of those kinds of things. What are clients, one of the things that I implemented for the firm was a client advisory board, because that really gave you a sense of what are clients really looking for. And some of our good friends were on the client advisory board. So being knowledgeable about the broader context is critical. And so oftentimes IT folks really like solving their technology problem. And they go solve that really well, but they don't know how to put it in the context of what is the board really see, how do they see that? And getting them to think about that has really been my passion. Getting them to focus around business alignment. What is the real business value? What are the real business outcomes? I think that's a critical piece. Kathy and I have had numbers of conversations about that in the past, and both good and bad in many ways. And I'm sure she's doing a phenomenal job at the principals.
Yeah, she sure is. She's really, really building quite a name for herself, her organization. And so, yeah, thank you, Kathy. Great job. And, one of the things I really appreciate about folks like you and Kathy and others is your self-awareness, your humility, right? And so, those moments that matter, those moments that you look back on, I mean, the good, the bad, the ugly, the great leaders will be willing to talk about the not so good ones. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, Anil. Can I get you to tee up maybe one of those that didn't go so great? What did you learn? What did you learn from that?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of things that didn't. I've had lots of my share of failures, my share of problems, my share of issues. We could spend hours on a lot of those, and I learned a lot from it. I spent a lot of time thinking about what happened and what went wrong. One example that, and I won't name names and I won't name the organization, but I had a pretty steep, heavy lift in front of me in terms of what needed to be done. And I was really concerned about that. I was concerned about it because it was on many aspects, whether it's business process, technology, upgrading stuff, keeping the lights on without, at 4 nines. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that needed to happen. And as the leader, I went and hired who I'd call the best of the best in each of those areas. They were A players. They were phenomenal. And, we got a lot of good stuff done. We had we probably had, hundreds of millions of dollars in savings, really changed with a really good trajectory in terms of digitizing the firm. And each of those players was really good. And they were A players. But the only issue was they hated each other. And they were in my staff meetings and they didn't trust each other, and their way was their way or the highway. And some of my staff meetings, were horrible. They were just terrible. And they were just like, there was a lot of battles. Their teams were fighting with each other. And, the one good thing I could say that happened is we achieved a lot, but there was a lot of collateral damage being formed in the organization. Now, this is an organization, when you add internal, external, and so on, about 14,000 people. And that you can't, when you have a sickness at the top of the ship with that kind of battles going on between key leaders who are really very good, but then just don't get along. So, the learnings I think from that are, so I did make changes, and I did get a team that knew how to work together. They were not typically the A players, but they were A players. It was an A team. Like, we really formed the A team, and it really formed a team that could go and develop a lot of stuff together. I wish I had made some of the changes before they became so bad. I think it became noticeable in the organization. People started seeing, hey, Anil team's doing a really bang-up job. They got a lot of stuff done, but oh my God, those guys are really, it's not helping, for them to be fighting with each other that much. So I wish I'd done things sooner. And building the A team rather than a bunch of A players is like, it's like you ask any coach, you ask any football team, or that's what they look for, right? That's what their baseball team, that's what they look for. And how do you get that A team? And the Yankees are a good example. I won't go into any of those things, but how do you get the right people playing together?
Right. That's I've never thought about it in that context, and I'm chuckling because you and I probably remember the TV show years ago, the A Team.
Right.
It wasn't called the A players, right? It was called the A team. So good point. Well, a lot of defining moments, right, shape our careers. And so I want to fire some more mystery questions at you. Kind of a series of them here, Neil. I think we'll have some fun with that. But these are folks who have had a front row seat in your journey, been part of your team. So they're going to help me unpack some more of those leadership attributes and traits. So listen to this first one.
Anil, I know you've been involved in many transformations over the years. My question is, how do you gain alignment with executive sponsors on a desired outcome, a path to achieve this vision, and how do you effectively communicate it to the teams that have to deliver on this commitment?
Dan Massey, there he is.
Yeah.
I recognize that voice anywhere. He's a great guy, and he worked for me for several years, and now he's the CIO at Regions Bank, and he's doing. He's got a huge job ahead of him in terms of what needs to be done there. And Dan's a master at collaboration and master at connecting different people. So coming from him, it's an honor to get that kind of question, but it's a great. He and I went through some of these, so I won't go through specifics of that. But when you're in a large organization, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be large, but some amount of complexity. Then you got senior executives, and they're all busy, and they all have their priorities, and they all have their pressures from the CEO, from the markets, and so on. And you're trying to. The thing about being in technology is that you're typically bringing several of these characters together. And to be successful, you've got to bring them together. And without that alignment, it's really difficult. So, and you don't naturally get that alignment because of everyone being, with their perspective and their focus. And so I think it's important, and it has been important, where you can see projects, a lot of projects fail miserably when you don't have alignment at the top. And I've actually been in situations where I've stopped a project, where I've seen that we spent 2 years and we spent lots of money on it. It was a great project to start off with. We did accomplish something, but the teams and the senior executives were beginning to go in different directions. And once you see that, you just don't want to keep that project going. It's going to fail. So building that alignment, a couple of words of advice are: don't hire a consultant to build alignment. I was a consultant for many years, and so I'm just saying it in that light. You've got to have alignment from the senior executives. Get that alignment over lunch, over some wine, and really figure out, so what are you looking for from this, and what are we trying to get done? Don't rely on a PowerPoint, because if you have a PowerPoint and everybody is nodding their heads to a PowerPoint, guess what? Everyone's got their opinion as to, they've seen in that PowerPoint what they want to see, but they're not necessarily aligned. So you got to really push and challenge. So what exactly are you trying to get done? In your mind's eye, how are you going to see this play out? What would you like to see implemented first, and so on? So don't rely on PowerPoints. Don't rely on consultants. Have that direct conversation. And then talk about what's the skin in the game that you're willing to put. Are you putting resources on this? Yes or no? Because the worst thing you can have is people saying, yeah, this is a great thing. Go do it. Come back to me. And, when you're implementing. No, you got to have people invested. And if they don't have any skin in the game, what you're going to create is these fly-by shooters. People who show up to steering committee meetings and say, I don't know what you guys are talking about. There's a load of blah, blah, blah. And, they just fly in, fly out and load a lot of stuff at you during the meeting. So get them invested, get them focused. And then the last thing is decision rights. Who's got the right ownership of decisions? And it's amazing how you'll see that there's lack of, I went through this once. I don't know if Dan was involved, but there's a lot of discussions between two senior executives, and they fought over decision rights, which was crazy, and but needed to be resolved. So anyway, that's all. And then how do you make that happen? Is you've got to communicate together, senior executives together, one steering committee, 3 leaders, 4 leaders, whatever it takes, all singing from the same hymn book. Put in the right governance structures. Suss out people below who are going to be naysayers and deal with them up front, or deal with them when it happens, and put in the right governance mechanisms and so on. I mean, I know that's a lot of standard kind of stuff, but it's easier said than done. And those are the practical pieces. But yeah, thanks, Dan, for the question. Yeah, he and I went through a couple of very, very intense conversations with some very senior executives, trying to bring them together. Right? So,
well, there's so much gold what you just shared, and I appreciate that. And Dan Massey, he's doing such a great job there. They gave him operations as well as technology, right? So talk about alignment on a grand scale. I think that guy's best days are still ahead of him. I really do. He's so impressive. But Anil, I love the answers you just provided, and you can't outsource alignment. Those relationships, and in the master class this week, I had a whole session on going slow to go fast. Right, do that work up front. Get the foundation in place, and then you won't get bogged down later. But no, such gold. And there's something out there, I refer to it often. It's called the no-do gap, KNOW, no-do gap, right? And you kind of alluded to it, but I always challenge people. I'm like, okay, you might know some of these things. Are you doing them? Are you doing them well, consistently? And, those things matter. So on that note, it's I'm going to challenge our audience. We have a brilliant audience, but I want to challenge you to think like that as we listen into our next amazing mystery question.
Anil, one of the things I admired most about you was your ability to collaborate. I think about Anil as a masterful collaborator across industry, across providers. How did you balance that and use that to your advantage?
No, I'm smiling. That's Amy Brady, very close friend, great leader. And she became the CIO at KeyBank when I became the CIO at SunTrust. So we had a lot of interaction over the years, and she remains a great, great friend. She's amazing. I think probably the first few times when I met Amy, I was on the Financial Services Roundtable, and I was the chair of the IT and security. It was called BITS at the time. It's changed its name, but we had all these senior bank CEOs from all the top banks, and my role was to run the IT coordination piece. I inherited that from someone, and then when my term finished, I handed it over to Amy. So she and I had a lot of interaction through that. I talked about the need to be strategic and the need to be thinking about what is the board looking at, what are clients looking at, what are your executives looking for, really understanding the context of those in everything that you do. But also another piece of it that's really important is what is the industry doing? And what are in the case of banks, what are other banks doing? And I've spent a lot of time, especially with the Financial Services Roundtable and in all the industries that I've been in, really going to get that cross-industry point of view and collaborating with people in my role in those other companies. And you'll be surprised that, a lot of times people are like, oh no, it's competitive and, we can't talk about stuff and we shouldn't talk about what's really competitive. We shouldn't talk about what's really the nitty-gritty of the detail of what's really being done and how you're doing it and so on. But you can talk about broader aspects. And I think that's an important piece that you as an individual learn a lot. And I spent, in fact, I had Amy and a bunch of other bank CIOs come to a meeting jointly. I sponsored it, and we shared a lot of good stuff. And surprising how much camaraderie you feel when you have that. And not only that, when you go back to your organization and you have those conversations with your CEO or with others in the executive team, you can be saying, look, I know, this other bank is doing it this way, or this other bank tried to do what you're thinking of doing, but they really didn't succeed. We should really reconsider it. You bring that perspective and you bring that. So it's important. It's really, I think it's a real important thing to collaborate across industry, not to give away the secrets of your organization, but to really share and understand a lot. So, but Amy does that really well too, and she was a great leader of the Financial Services Roundtable after I left, and she remains a great friend.
I know. Thank you, Amy. I know that a lot of people, especially in the industry, look to her as one of the leaders amongst leaders. I mean, she's really special. And what was neat about this process, Anil, these are all really busy people. They're in the fight every day. They all stopped what they were doing. They each gave me probably 2 or 3 questions. I could have used them all, right? I just didn't have enough time. So it was kind of fun to be able to pull these together. But really tells us a lot about how people think about you, respect you, and a great perspectives, and taking the time to have those broader ecosystem partnerships.
Yeah, they just wanted to get back at me for something.
Well, speaking of someone who wants to get back at you, let's tee up another one here, Anil, and you're going to know who this is right away. So let's tee up the next one.
Anil, I think you are one of these people that people call a lifelong learner. And one of the things that I always found interesting about you was that you speak multiple languages. I think it's 4. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be? I think it's a little bit tied to curiosity and how you continue to kind of grow throughout the years. But I'm interested in how you became prolific at a fairly young age in a multilingual environment.
Hey, a personal question, but of course.
Personal, yes.
But of course, from Elise Bachman, who's worked in my organization, and she's doing a great job as in Sherwin-Williams. So she's good. She's great. And yeah, no, I think I'm Indian origin, and I grew up in Mumbai, and so we had my own language, and there are multiple languages in India. So those of you who haven't been to India, you got Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Malayalam. I mean, there's so many different languages, and Mumbai is a very cosmopolitan city, and you learn very quickly about who is who and where they come from and all the different aspects, and you see all you see all the differences. And then I moved to Rome, Italy, when I was 12, and I grew up in Rome, and I went to an international school. And for me, in the beginning, the first trimester or whatever, it was like, they're all white people. I have no idea who these guys are. They all look the same. They all talk the same, and they all look white, and they're not. But then within a couple of a year or so, I quickly started to tell the difference between a German and a Scandinavian, or a Brit and an American, and a French, and all the different aspects of that. And you really start, and I enjoyed that aspect of it, of really understanding Italian, French, Spanish. And, I played soccer with a bunch of these guys, and played rugby actually in school. And it was a great learning experience to understand that. I landed up in New York, and I was in London for a while, and London is very cosmopolitan. Actually, university friends that I got are from all over the world, and some of these are my closest friends. We go travel together every year. So I think what it builds into you is this understanding that the world is full of human beings, and humanity is the same, no matter which language you're coming from. So it helps you empathize, helps you learn from others, and keeps you with an open mind, which unfortunately I think we are failing miserably at. Not as a political statement, but I think it's something that we need to learn better, learn fast, because the world is changing. I was in Saudi Arabia earlier on this year giving a presentation to a massive audience, 225,000 people over 4 days. But the Saudi is now going to become, in 30 years, the shift is going to happen where the economies in the Far East and the Middle East and India, and China, and all of that is going to start changing. Africa over time is going to change drastically. And we sitting in the US, if we're not open to that worldview, we start becoming irrelevant, and we start becoming isolated. And I think that's what I fear sometimes of what's happening. So yeah, I don't know if that answers Elisa's question, but I just want to give you a little bit of my own personal background and why I think it's important.
Pretty special. I'm glad she asked the question. I'm glad you were comfortable with it. Just knowing your heritage, your journey, and the how that did instill that curiosity, the collaboration. The other thing that I don't know if you really touched on, but how it instills that courage, right? I mean, you talked earlier about being uncomfortable, talking about being in that zone, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, the preparation. Any reflection on that in terms of building? So I think if there was ever a time, Anil, we needed leadership courage, it's today, because this profession of ours is not for the faint of heart.
No, it's a tough time, especially now with what just happened with CrowdStrike and what's been going on in the industry, and especially with Gen AI and so on. I think the IT leaders of today are going to become obsolete if they don't change and show that courage and drive and own and lead. And it takes a different type of leader. The old mainframe guy with the line printers, humming in the background, that left after client server became a thing. And then as soon as internet became a thing, the chief digital officer, CEOs were like, we need a chief digital officer. Well, what about that CIO guy? Well, yeah, he's keeping the lights on. But, the world is changing so much that, you got to have the courage. You got to know all these different languages, as it were, and all these different ways of communicating that if you don't, you're going to be obsolete.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't put the fear of discomfort into people, then it should. Right?
And I want people to really listen to that because it's, there's never been a better time to be in our profession, but there's a but there, right? You've got to really adapt and evolve and grow that new muscle. And Charlie Feld and I talk a lot about that. It's interesting how the two of you, with the perspective that you both have, right, can see that. And so people can go be successful in this next chapter, and it's our best days ahead, right? It really
I
is.
think so. I think so. It's going to be
Yeah.
fun. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. So Elise, thank you and for unpacking that. And she's working up there in Cleveland with, as you say, Sherwin-Williams with Ivy Chin, another amazing C-level executive. I'd have her on, but she can't. It's just a company thing. Like, she can't do it, and so I respect that. But she's pretty special too. So thank you. All right, we got double trouble coming at you now. All right, 2 questions, same person. All right, so I'm going to help you learn more about you, and I know these answers are going to help a lot of people. So listen to the first one and tell us who this is.
Hi, Anil. One of the things that has stood out over our time together in our relationship has been your level of empathy. It's something that I've admired and appreciated and just found so much value in over the years. Maybe talk to the audience about why that's important, how you've developed that over the years, and how it's impacted your personal life and your professional life.
Yeah, no, that's Scott Case, my successor in SunTrust and Truist, and great guy. And it's funny coming from him, the question about empathy, because he is a master of that too. I mean, that's his superpower, and he took on a really difficult role when he worked for me, which was managing the consumer sector, and he's really good at that. So I think it's important in the sense that if you're not empathetic, then if it's always what it is you want, and you're not listening to others, you become someone that no one wants to work with. And it's not helpful at all to you to be that way. You've got to listen. And I used to talk to people about their staff meetings, and I'd say, "Okay, so you have staff meetings?" Yeah, we have staff meetings. And so I said, "Well, how long are you speaking in your staff meeting?" And sometimes people, I run the show, I got the agenda, I go through all these things, and blah, blah, blah. And so I said, "Okay, in an hour staff meeting, how long are you speaking?" "Oh, 45 minutes. I said, "That's terrible. What are you doing? I mean, but we got all these things we got to do, and I got to tell them everything." And I said, "Like, if you're speaking more than 10% or 15%, and you're not listening to your team, you got to have your team talk to you. That's what the staff meeting is for. It's not for you to dictate to them what needs to be done. You can do that in one-on-ones, you can do that separately, and so on. But being empathetic, really understanding what's going on in the brains of your team is critical. And if you don't do that, guess what's going to happen? You get disengaged team members who are like, "Oh, we've got another staff meeting. Neil's going to be blabbering on for 45 minutes. We can't get a damn word in because he's going to tell us all these damn things." And, guess what's happening? They're checking email, they're texting, and while you're texting each other during the meeting. And so, so being empathetic and being a listener is critical. And especially when you're new to the job, when you're taking over certain things, when you're learning, I think and really putting yourself in the other's shoes. And we can go on and on about empathy, but there's been lots of cases where I've been in the position where I'm negotiating between 2 senior executives who don't listen to each other. And I've been playing the role of, well, I think what he means is this, and what she means is that, and of being the mediator. And that's an unfortunate position to be in.
Well, I think that is invaluable right there, Anil. And I'd be curious. I love the idea of listening, but part of that too is asking good questions. Like, and I'm just thinking about your preparation. So, would you go into that staff meeting? Would you know what you wanted to ask people, what you want to get them talking about?
Very much so, very much so. And if you don't, if you haven't really prepared, which happens sometimes because you're busy and you're running into the meeting, and you can change the tone of the staff meeting, saying, "Look, hey, I got nothing really to talk about here, but I just want to hear from you what your week's been like, and just let's go around the room. Let's just talk about, what are you thinking about? What's bothering you? What's the critical thing? Do you need anything from anybody else in the room?" And just kind of, so you can go in unprepared sometimes and make it the most productive meeting. But being prepared with here's the message that I want to send, and here's what I want to elicit out of the meeting is really important. But yeah, you gotta flex. You gotta flex based on your own. Everyone's busy, and everyone's. You're not going to be. You might have been preparing for a board meeting, and you're just not ready for the staff meeting. So flex for that instance.
I always like to coach people, go into those scenarios, go in with business partners, be interesting. Be interesting second, but be interested first, right? That's to your point. Listen more, ask questions. And gosh, when you finally do speak, you'll be a lot more interesting to people because you'll know what matters, you know what's important, and just a lot of gold there. Barbara Cooper, one of the great CIOs ever. Barbara, she's does some amazing executive coaching now, and she talks about time and preparation. And one of her questions for leaders is, when you get an hour that falls off your calendar, what do you do with that hour? Do you get on and do the busy work? Do you get on and do the brainless stuff? Just do some email, or do you tackle that hard thing? Do you prepare for that next meeting? It's really a great question. And I think all the great people I know, Neil, get up early and they look over their calendar for the day, and they anticipate, they plan, they prep those questions, right? Hey, I know this meeting is going to be a little rocky. I got to make sure I get them ready in this way and that way. So good, just gold. Thank you, Scott, for that question. And Scott Case, by the way, when I reached out to him, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare when I reached out, but he was in Europe, and he's like, "Okay, I'm going to be back on this day." Like literally that day he was back. He's like, "I want to do this for Anil." So appreciate it. But I've got another great Scott Case question, Anil. So don't go anywhere. So let's listen into Scott number 2.
Hi, Anil. I want you to talk a little bit about why it's so important for you to invest in relationships and how you think about networking across the technology community. You're so good at it. You make it a priority, and I think in the CIO community, it's something we could all learn from. So maybe talk about that for a minute. Thanks.
Yeah, that's really important to me. I think is networking in general and networking in the community. Whether it's the banking industry, the CIO community. Now I'm spending a lot of time with private equity firms and spending time really understanding what they're up to. And I think you've got to have that one, curiosity, and two, everyone gets so busy with their work and everyone gets so busy with their situation, and which you should be. And if you're in an operating role, a CIO role, you're driving a lot of the change, and you've got to be focused on it. But you got to have some of operating partner role, a non-operating role. You got to start thinking about meet with folks, grab a cup of coffee, go to events. You're in Broadmoor just last week, so go to events like that and really meet other CIOs. I'd probably learn a lot more when I'm meeting with a lot of people, and you got to pick and choose that, right? So I used to joke about it with my other CIO friends and say, look, if I answered all the invitations that I got, I'd be out 365 days a week, a year. I mean, there's enough stuff that's going on. So don't overdo it. There's a lot of CIOs who are spending way too much time, I think, networking and very little time. You look at them and say, are they doing any work? They seem to be in every one of these events, and you see them on LinkedIn talking about all that stuff. So you don't overdo it. You got to balance it out a little bit. But I think it's important. When I think about my career and how I've been getting those opportunities, I never went to a headhunter. I moved from one to the other only through the network. So I got the job through the network. I mean, my starting job with Coopers and Lybrand, perhaps I went through it. Yeah, that's when I was beginning. But ever since then, it was always through the network that I got the next job and the next job and the next job. It's people who you know, people who you connect with. And they're like, hey, Anil, have you thought about working for the White House? No, I don't want to do that. No, you should think about it. Okay, so go. And so that becomes, that was all a network thing. It was not me sitting there applying for the job. So it's important to network because, things happen and you want to change and you want, things may not work with you in the company that you're in. So it's critical. It's a critical thing. You're a part of the society. You're not a drone driving the operational performance of X. That's not who you are. You got to brand yourself broader than that.
A lot of nuggets there. I see it with folks who aren't intentional about that, and it really puts them at a loss from a learning awareness, what's going on, just their own energy. You get fired up when you're around peers who are really smart, and the call I usually get is, "Hey, I just lost my job," and my first question is, how's the network? And don't get a lot of good answers, right? And it's just really, really you got to build bridges when the sun's out, not when it's raining. And so, but I always like to say, Neil, think about it as connecting, not networking. Think about it as giving, not taking. And I think our colleagues would find a lot more enjoyable, a lot more incentivizing to approach it in that way.
I think it's giving. Giving is the thing. If you're helping someone and you're helping them find a job, you're helping them with their career, you're helping them, these folks who work for me who are now CIOs and doing a great job. I mean, I feel a sense of pride, that's what you've done and that's what you've helped. And then they pay you back. They give you tough questions.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, listen, as I get to know them well, if you ever need anything, and I mean this sincerely, the answer is yes. We'll figure it out, but let's make sure we talk about it. Let's make sure we can help you, whatever. If you need to meet somebody that is going to help you through this knothole, we'll figure it out. So the other, one of the things you and I are pretty passionate about is our profession, the future of our profession, developing leaders so that we can lead into the future. And we've got this leadership program, TechLX, 9 months. But the banner here really is Tech for Good. And, my company thankfully supports this. We donate over $100,000 a year in scholarships. And, you know the program. And so we'd love to give you the ability to gift a seat in that TechLX program. Is there one of the many organizations that you collaborate with, support with, on the boards of, that you'd like to gift that to?
Yeah, no, I really think, I don't know if you've heard of Inspire EDU, and I say this with a little bit of trepidation because I haven't talked to Richard Hicks, who's the CEO of Inspire EDU, but they're a spinoff of Power My Learning in the Atlanta area. And what they do is a lot of really good work for the underprivileged. And they help with laptops, technology, training. They help with the kids. They help with the adults. They help with the senior citizens. In fact, Richard and I are spending a little bit of time working with the Georgia Technology Authority to help, expand a lot of what they're doing in conjunction with a lot of work that Georgia is doing. So great organization. I love, if you met Richard, you'd love him. He's a great guy. He's passionate. So he would be a real good candidate. I don't know what he would do with and how he would do it, but I'd love you to meet him. I'm honored that you're doing this, and it's a great thing that you'll find it a great organization.
Thank you. I was not aware of Richard and Inspired EDU, so thank you for putting them on our radar. The work they're doing is so important. I do look forward to not networking with Richard, connecting with Richard. So yeah, please do connect us, and we'll figure out how we can best leverage that scholarship. Well, we're kind of winding down here, Anil. I've got a couple of reflective questions for you. All right, just given an amazing career story, career journey. Next chapter is going to be amazing. But are you a golfer, Anil?
I am.
So most people know
a bad one.
Okay, so you're going to know my question, the mulligan, right? The mulligan is the famous do-over in golf, and amongst friends, they don't really happen. But when you look back over your career, is there a mulligan? Is there a decision, a role, something that you would love to do over again?
Yeah, that's a tough question because let me explain why I think that's a tough question. And by the way, I love mulligans in golf. I mean, one per hole is probably what we aim for.
A good average, sure.
But I know that's not doable, and when you're playing with serious players. But my whole attitude to life in general is never look back and say, I wish I'd done something different. Always learn from, if it didn't go well, learn from it, but move on, right? So I'm not a person to say, oh, that was bad luck, or, so there are roles that I was given that probably didn't make a lot of sense to me. And, I took them on. As a partner at PwC, I was given a very global role running an ERP practice globally. I had no knowledge of, but someone trusted my capability and said, you should do that. And it was a learning experience for me. Did I do a great job? It was okay. I mean, I wouldn't give myself an A for it. I'd say, probably a good B maybe, or but I learned a lot. I learned about global roles, and I learned about how to bring them together. So I'm not one to sit there and say, I wish I hadn't got it. I wish I hadn't done this. There've been lots of bad things that, my share of failures and my share of issues and so on. So I'm not saying I didn't have any of those, but I just don't see them as being, I need a mulligan on that, or give me another chance, or give me something else. Let me learn from it. Let me. I don't know if that's my attitude to life. Is just move on, learn, and think positive about where you're going.
I had no idea where you would take that, and I love that perspective, Anil. And I think something that you shared too. It's kind of I think it's a challenge to those CEOs in our community. It's you got those opportunities. Maybe you weren't ready for them. None of us are, right? But if we don't do that intentionally, how are we going to prepare our people? And I don't think we've done a good job with that as a profession in the last decade. So just a great golden nugget. And gosh, the world's going so fast. We're seeing things we've never seen before. So yeah, stub your toe, learn, regroup, move on, don't look back. That's just great advice. Well, I think we're getting a good feel for the superpowers, the secret sauce, and things that make you a great leader. We've heard from Monty and Elise and Amy and Dan and Steve and Kathy. And my last question for you, probably a hard question to answer too, but when you look back over a career, what's the legacy going to be?
I hate those questions. So,
I thought you might. You might.
Yeah, legacy sounds like you're on your deathbed and you're about to croak, and you're like, what do you want your legacy to be? I think I got another good 30 years in me to do some good stuff. And, life is too exciting right now. There's so much stuff that's going on. I mean, I'm just thrilled about what's happening in the world with technology. And I'm actually, I love learning new stuff. I'm putting myself outside my comfort zone. I'm actually learning a little bit about, now you might find this humorous, but it's out of this world. It's astronomy and black holes and, the origin of it. And where is this universe? And are we the only ones here? And I'm just curious about it. And I'm just spending a lot of time just digging through that. And but I think lifelong learner, variety, global technologist, but not really, kind of more of a business technology guy, change person. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that just runs through my mind, but I think there's still another 30 years to go. So,
well, that's good news for all of us. And, again, I said in the introduction, the only thing you've really failed at is retirement. You've come out twice, and you said this is it. And gosh, with 30 years left, we might get you back another role or two here, right? There's time. But thank you so much. Really, I just really enjoy time with you. I learned from you, and you look amazing. I mean, for a guy who's just done big things, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And people know this is good news. Is we're going to spend a little more time together. Next week, we're going to come out with an article on CIO.com. And there, I want to kind of pick your brain on, again, on some of your learnings, but emerging technologies. You just did some writing about Gen AI. So, I mean, you're just firing all cylinders here. How you drove innovation, how you drove that product mindset, product culture. So much more territory to cover. So thanks for that. But Anil, thank you again. And on behalf of our entire audience, we're so fortunate to have learned from you the last hour or so.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. And, you are also very humble. And the reason why I listened to a few of your podcasts. I mean, the reason why you're so successful is the way in which you get into the topic and into the individual, and you bring out the best. So I do appreciate all the work that you're doing. So thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. And, a wise person once told me it's all about the preparation.
There you go.
And on that note, thanks, everybody. Glad you joined us. CIO Legend, Anil Cheriyan, and we will see you again next time.
You've been listening to Tech Whisperers, inside the playbook of the best digital leaders, a Woolette and Associates podcast. Keep connected with us by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you like what you've heard, please rate the show, as this helps us connect the world's best digital leaders with those who aspire to learn, grow, and thrive in this amazing profession. Thanks for listening. Until next time.